All right. Welcome to the Commissioner Evaluation Show. This is John McGlynn. You can find me on the Twitter machine at John McGlynn75. Today I had the pleasure of talking with the co-host with the Mo-host, my regular guy, JT Orange, Justin Taylor. We'll do a deep depth chart dive into the AFC and NFC South today. These are some of his favorite teams. So let's get into the show and let's talk about some depth charts.
Play to win, no fear to give. I feel, but I can't forgive. I go all in this time, yeah, I won't regret. I'll pick the best on trip, they don't understand. I play to win, yeah, I play to win, I play to win. Yeah, I play to win, I play to win. Oh, play to win, I play to win. Yeah, play to win, I play to win.
So, JT, what happened this weekend, man? What do you got going on?
It's pretty interesting weekend. Just graduation stuff like crazy, kind of like you and your life. My niece graduated, so spent all weekend going to graduation parties. Did get my Scott Fishbowl 13 invite in the email, so was pumped about that. Didn't have to wait around a long time this year to get it. I was on the first wave, so it's pretty pumped to know I was in. And of course, that's where we met last year, was at the Chicago Live Draft. So I'm pumped about going to the Live Draft again. We got deep dish divisions on the deep dish pizza. So I'm looking forward to it.
I'm in the Giordano's division. Yes, it was nice having the Scott Fishbowl invite. Yes, I had my daughter, my last of my 4 kids, graduated high school, so that makes me officially old now. I have all college-age kids. You know, it is what it is. I brought my mom's birthday. So we brought my whole family to my mom at a White Sox game. She grew up a couple blocks away from Comiskey Park. We went to 1,000 Sox games my whole life with my mom. That was kind of the stuff to do. Instead of some kids go to the zoo, some kids go to the park. We went to White Sox games my whole life, so that was it was nice to bring my mom for her birthday to the White Sox game. So that was super nice. And my fishbowl invite, and my daughter had a playoff lacrosse game yesterday that, she played great, but the team lost. It is what it is. Playoffs, everybody wants to make it to the end. There's only one winner. So as long as they played hard, played good, it is what it is. So let's get the show going.
I repeat, McGlynn is in. Let the fun begin. This is the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast with your host, John McGlynn.
Was that Herms?
He got them guests on the Rolodex, stopping by to talk about some Dynasty Superflex. Everybody, Commish is in. It's time to sit down to listen to John McGlynn. Yo, who we trading, who we fading, who we getting off the squad. Knowledge never overrated, playing for number 1. And McGlynn is in. It's time to let the fun begin. It's the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast with John McGlynn.
So let's talk about some depth charts here. We are going to start on the AFC South with your favorite teams in this division. So it should be a nice transition for you to bash the other teams here. We'll start off with the Texans, who are pretty easy to bash, but we'll start out. They got C.J. Stroud in the draft. Davis Mills, everybody's favorite a year ago. Hopefully everybody thought he was going to be the future. Got 3rd round pick they traded up to get that didn't really pan out to what they expected. You got Dameon Pierce again, who I think is a little bit overrated of a player. Devin Singletary got signed here. Daria Gumbuale, Mike Boone, it kind of falls off the ledge from there. Xavier Valade, who played high school football with my son, is on this team as an undrafted free agent. I'm rooting for him. Nico Collins, Tank Dell, John Mechie, Xavier Hutchinson, Robert Woods, and then kind of Noah Brown, Amari Rogers, Jared Wynn. Jalen Camp was my guy a couple years ago. He never panned out, but I love Jalen Camp. That name will forever be a spot in my heart. So I'm rooting for him to one day make a resurgence in the NFL, but I don't think it's going to happen. Dalton Schultz, Brevin Jordan, like Brevin Jordan a lot a year ago, another guy it seems he got passed over. And that's about it. What do you think about the Houston Texans depth chart? What do you think is going on for offensive wise anyway? What is the Nico Ryans and Bobby Slowick going to bring to this team?
Well, I think this AFC South is a really interesting division just in general for fantasy purposes this year. Everybody going out, getting young QBs, don't quite know what to expect out of all these young QBs. Are they going to play right away? Are they going to give them a chance to, is Davis Mills going to come in, start the first half of the season and kind of bring CJ Stroud along? Or do you think CJ Stroud's ready? You throw him right in? I think the same thing we're going to bring up the same question with a couple other teams in this division. So I just think this division's so wide open in real life and for fantasy purposes. These two divisions actually play each other, NFC South and AFC South, which pretty much I think you can look lead wide. And everyone thinks they're the two worst divisions in football. So the fact that they're actually on each other's schedule, I think actually is pretty interesting because I think it opens the door for one of these teams, I think at least one of these teams, each of these divisions to maybe end up with a decent record and make the playoffs, even though they might not be that good of a team. You know what I'm saying? Just because the record of who you're playing and all thing. I know we discussed this a little bit when me and you talked about the schedule, and we went through all the schedule of everyone on the stew with JT Brew last week. And, you know, I had the Colts winning quite a few games, and you're like, how do you have that? And I'm like, I don't think they're as good as their win total is going to be just because of the scheduling. This Texas team, I think, could go all over the place. I think Davis Mills was better than people gave him credit for last year. I mean, I don't know any quarterback you could have put in that situation on the Texans last year, and he would have been really good fantasy-wise or brought him a lot of wins. It just wasn't that type of situation. So it'll be interesting to see, do they go right into CJ Stroud or not? You know, we've seen teams go both ways. We've seen teams come in and they just immediately take the top 5 or top 10 quarterback and he starts day one. And we've seen teams say, wait till the bye week. And then we see teams say, hey, like a Patrick Mahomes, wait the whole season. I don't think that makes any sense with these teams. But I always am nervous that they're going to ruin a young, good quarterback if the team around him is terrible, he gets sacked a million times, and then all of a sudden he loses all his confidence. So that's something I don't want to see. I like CJ Stroud a lot. He was my number 1 QB coming into the draft. He drops a bit for me just for the fact that he's on the Texans. And the biggest problem for me is the Texans, I'm worried about their weapons, John. I mean, I know some people really like Nico Collins. I'm not 100% sure he's going to be the guy. I do like Dalton Schultz getting added to this team. We don't know what to expect anything out of John Mechie. Great Alabama wide receiver, sat out all last year. I think it was he had cancer. He had Hodgkins. Yeah. So him come back. Hopefully he fully comes back and is ready to roll. He's a guy I was excited about in drafts last year as a rookie. So I like him. Robert Woods. I just don't know. Does he have anything left? He did not look good last year. I don't know, just because he was on the Titans or what it was. But he's a guy I'm getting a ton of trades for. People are offering me, which they across multiple leagues. Everyone's trying to trade me the same guy. So I'm worried about him. How quickly, does Tank Dell come in? Xavier Hutchinson, 2 rookies I really like, actually, that I think could see some PT here. They're 2 guys I'm grabbing late in rookie drafts just because I see the upside. The question is, are any of these guys going to be fantasy relevant enough that you're going to want to play them this year? That's the question for me. Like you said, Dameon Pierce, great start last year, really kind of tailed off near the end of the season. And then they added Devin Singletary, a guy I've always liked. I liked him on the Bills. But now he comes in to steal some carries. So does that kill Dameon Pierce? I don't know if it totally kills him, but it definitely limits his upside. This Texas team is just tough. If guys fault me, I'm probably going to take them. But this is not a team I'm looking to add players at all unless I already have like a CJ Stroud. If I already had him on a Devi league or I'm in a super flex league and need QB, then I'm probably going after him. But man, I all these guys make me nervous.
Well, this guy named Tank, he's got to be huge with a name like Tank, right? I mean, he's got to be 6'4", 240-pound wide receiver, right? How do you get a name like Tank with being small, right? You can't be a small wide receiver with a name like Tank, right?
It makes no sense to me whatsoever. But again, he was a super productive guy in college at SMU, but a program that's put out really productive wide receivers. Emmanuel Sanders is from there. The question is, the league has shown time and time again that really small wide receivers just do not make it at the next level. They just have a hard time becoming fantasy relevant and real life relevant. Now, CJ Stroud, of course, famously went out there and asked to get Tank Dell.
Right.
So you at least got to love that. At least the quarterback likes you off the bat. So that that helps him right there. Now, can he get him the ball and can that connection turn into fantasy gold? I'm very nervous about it. But where Tank Dell's going in rookie drafts for where he actually got drafted in the real life draft, he's actually fallen pretty deep. I've been getting him, I've been seeing him go a lot of mid to late thirds, even early fourths for a guy that went, I think, second round is pretty low. So I know there's not a lot of confidence in him right now as far as him putting up big stats, but he's at least a guy that I'm taking. I like him, and I like Xavier Hutchinson. Xavier Hutchinson's the opposite. He's actually a big guy. He is 6'2", 200 pounds, was super productive at Iowa State, even though they didn't have great quarterback play the whole time he was there. They still put up great numbers every year there. So he's a guy that I'm looking at. If I can get him in the fourth round of my rookie drafts, I'm all over Xavier Hutchinson. I think he ends up carving out a role on this team. I really do.
Yeah, he's a dark horse to be the number one guy because there's not really a number one guy here at all. It is what it is. So I get it. But let's talk about your Colts next. AR-15, they drafted him number 3, I believe, in the draft. So that's a fantastic situation. He walks in behind your guy, Gardner Minshew. I mean, we talked about this before the draft, how you were kind of hoping this would be the scenario if your other guy wasn't available. You got JT, they drafted Evan Hull, Deion Jackson, Zach Moss, my guy. I don't know one of those guys is going to be off the probably. I'm not sure we're going to keep all 4 running backs this year. So Zach Moss might be the odd man out here. We'll see what happens. But I like Zach Moss a lot. I think he should be the number 2. He should be the number 1 on this depth chart. But we'll let JT take that spot for right now. Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, who they drafted. Alec Pierce is an underrated wide receiver. Ashton Dulin is a big time athlete. Isaiah McKenzie from the Bills. I'm not sure who he really panned out. Mike Strachan is a guy that I liked before. Kind of saw him play. It isn't going to happen. Juwan Winfrey, Malik Taylor, a bunch of roster cuts at the end of this roster. Jelani Woods, he's a kind of a Twitter echo chamber kind of sleeper this year. Jelani Woods, Moelle Cox. They always use tight end on this team. So I'm kind of interested to see what happens in the tight end situation here. But Anthony Richardson, usually running quarterbacks don't generally throw to, dump off past the tight ends or running backs here too much. So it might be run with Anthony Richardson after the Gardner Minshew bridge goes, if it happens at all, which I think it will for the first half of the season possibly. But when's the Colts bye week this year?
Oh, let me look that up real quick. It is it's a little bit later. It's not super late. It's not right at the beginning here. Let me find it real quick on my
Sorry to put you on the spot here.
Scheduler. Nope. I'll get it. I'll get it here. I'm pulling it up right now. So looking at the schedule, they actually have bye week. It looks like week 11. After they get the bye week after the Germany game where they go to Germany and play the Patriots. So a little bit later in the season bye week. They come out of that bye week with Tampa Bay, Tennessee, and then 2 toughies with Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, but then finish the year out with Atlanta, Vegas, and Houston. So
I got to think they make the transition to Anthony Richardson before week 11 this year, right?
To me, if you're gonna go to him, it doesn't. I don't know if it makes any sense to go that deep in the year. Why wouldn't you switch to him earlier? It's going to be interesting to see what they do. I think Minshew could actually be solid on this team. I think they've got enough weapons and enough players around him that he doesn't have to be all world. Now, people forget Gardner Minshew actually has some pretty decent stats, stat lines, and win-loss record from his time at Jacksonville. So, right. And then he stepped in last year for Jalen Hurts when he got hurt, and he helped the Eagles there as well. So I think he's a slightly underrated player personally. I like him a lot. I just think he fits Indy. He's just such an indie type of player. They're going to love him there. If he gets a shot, I think that he can do something. But more and more I'm looking at, the more and more I'm hearing and reading about things coming out of Indy, it seems like they might go Anthony Richardson early, even though, everybody said, hey, he's only played 13 games in college. He needs a ton of work. There's no way he's going to be ready anytime soon. Man, the more you see it, the more you think they might actually just come out and go Anthony Richardson from the beginning and see what happens. But I don't know. I've seen stat projections all over the place for him. I saw some today that's about 2,900 passing yards, 750 rushing, 12 touchdowns, or 22 touchdowns, 12 picks. If he puts up that kind of season in rookie year 1, you're going to have people fired up. If he gets over 700 rushing yards, almost 3,000 passing, and puts up over 20 TDs, I just think you're going to have people excited. So here's again the thing with him. I want to see him succeed. I think he's got a ton of talent. The passing game, if you look at his passing breakdown, throws a great deep ball, pretty accurate deep ball. Issue for him was he was just terrible on the intermediate passes. Stuff for between like 5 and 10 yards were just awful at Florida. So if he can clean that up a little bit, and they can figure out how to just make those adjustments, I think that maybe makes a difference. But I'm really not sure here. At the beginning of the year, I was like, hey, let's go Minshew the whole year. Let's let AR figure it out. Let's get him a year under his belt and then come in fresh next year. And now I don't know. Now I'm kind of leaning like, do you just play him? And if he struggles, and you get it, you say, hey, we worked through it, and then we come back next year with another top 5 pick. The only thing is, I think this team, even though they had a terrible record last year, ton of injuries, all their key guys were hurt.
Yeah.
And then Matt Ryan played terrible. He was a turnover machine during the year. I just think this team, probably the easiest schedule in all of football this year. This team has a shot to win double-digit games if they can get any kind of play from their QB and they can get all their other guys to bounce back. JT bounces back. The O-line bounces back. Shaquille Leonard on defense gets back in there. I mean, all-pro player who missed all year last year. So, like I said, this team, I think, is on the verge, especially with the easy schedule, to make something happen. So you hate to see them just throw away a season. But, man, I feel like so many things could happen with this Colts team. I can see this Colts team, winning 11 games. I also could see them falling apart and winning 4. I don't know what to expect out of them. I think the defense is going to be good. If you could get any kind of competent quarterback play, I think Pittman can still be good. I know people are off on Pittman. I'm trading for him everywhere. His price is dipped big time right now.
Yeah, right.
I got him for a 2nd and 3rd rounder next year.
Wow.
I'm all day on that. That's a great move. I think Alec Pierce is going to be improved. He showed flashes last year. They just had trouble getting the ball in any kind of space to make plays. He's kind of more of your deep guy, and I actually think they really lucked into Josh Downs.
Yes.
I'm seeing quite a few spots where people are like, this might end up being the steal of the draft. I mean, people were talking about him going to the Bills in the late 1st round, and then the Colts were able to snag him up, which, nothing against Isaiah McKenzie. I think that's Josh Downs' spot in the slot. I think he ends up winning that one out of camp, and you end up having Pittman, Pierce, and Downs. I just think that's a nice group. I like Jelani Woods. I think he's going to have a shot. Mo Alley Cox, he's a nice player. He's a good dude. He's just not productive. He's just not a guy that's going to give you a lot at the tight end spot. He gets you a couple, he blocks pretty well, makes you a couple passes over the middle. I think Woods ends up taking over that spot, even though I think they play a lot of 2 tight ends anyway next year. But like I said, I think this is all over the place. I do think these guys are fantasy relevant. If you can buy that Pittman and JT dip, now's the time to do it. I think JT is another one I've seen going for way less this year than he was last year if you're trying to buy him. So I'm in on him. I think he has a bounce back year. That's the first year he's ever missed time with injuries in his entire playing career, high school through college to the pros. So I just feel like he's a bounce back candidate big time. And if everyone always say, what's the quarterback's best friend? The running game. If they can get the running game going, it just makes the quarterback not have to do everything and put it on himself. And then I think you can add in the rushing of AR in there. And I think this team can end up being fairly dangerous.
Yeah, the only problem I guess most people would have is that you got a quarterback who doesn't throw short intermediate passes, and you got a running back who's not known for catching passes, like, humongous PPR guy as far as that goes. So JT, with a running quarterback, what's his workload going to be? He's going to get tons of volume, but we're talking about we're in PPR leagues. You get a full point for catch. If JT is going to be stuck in that, 19 rushes for 82 yards and no touchdowns, what does that do for you on a fantasy football level?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely going to have some games in there where you're frustrated he didn't get any catches, but he actually is a better receiver than people give him credit for. The Colts don't have a ton of plays. Well, people forget Neon Hines was there, and he was really their 3rd down guy. So a lot of times if they were running hurry up or anything like that, he was in there. They started trying to get JT a few more touches last year with screen passes and swing passes. I think they continue to do that. I don't think you're ever going to see him catch 10 balls in a game. But I do think you're going to possibly see him more with 2 or 3 catches a game. That was one of my favorite bets, not last year, but the year before. I would always take the over receiving yards and over catches for him because it was so low on sites like FanDuel and DraftKings. I mean, you could get over half a catch, and it was 10 yards receiving. So if you caught one pass for 15 yards or 20 yards, you were set. So I love that bet. I think they're going to get him the ball more. And again, I think their play action game, if they can get that ball, pounding the ball on the ground, I think that play action game, which fits right into AR's wheelhouse, faking the run and then throwing deep balls, I think that could be real successful. Like I said, if they can just clean up those intermediate passes and figure out a way where he can complete some of those on a more regular basis, because you got to hit those in the NFL. You can't leave those things. You can't leave that on the field. You got to make sure you're completing those passes. So I think the sky's the limit, like everybody else says with him. I mean, he could be absolute fantasy gold, but he's also a guy I'm real nervous about because, again, how much are they going to give him if he struggles? He comes out and struggles. How much, leeway are they going to give him? I hope they give him a lot of leeway since you took him, number 4 overall. But we've seen teams just bail on people. People don't want to wait around anymore. They want to see people successful right away. So I just hope the Colts, whatever happens with them, I hope they stick with it. If they give him a chance, they put him out there, give him a chance, let him play. If they go Minshew and Minshew's playing well and they're getting wins, I kind of hope they just stay with Minshew.
Right.
Let AR learn. Maybe get him some series. Maybe set almost like they do in college with freshmen sometime, where you get them every 3rd or 4th series, you give him a series specifically designed for him. I don't know how much you really want to do that at the pro level, but I wouldn't mind seeing that a little bit with him, just to try to work him into the game. I don't know. Every coach is different. Sometimes you're gonna get guys, they don't want to go back and forth like that for confidence reasons. But I don't know. I feel like if Minshew can get in there and mentor him, I know he really wants to start. I know he wants to be the guy, but hopefully he can still, kind of take AR under his wing and kind of, just help him be a pro, help him figure out how to be a pro. He seems like a nice guy. Seems like a guy willing to learn. So I just hope everything works out for him and the Colts, because if it doesn't, it's going to be a long next decade of trying to figure out a quarterback. But I'm hoping this AR ends up being the guy.
Speaking of the guy, we'll go to the Jacksonville Jaguars next, where the guy is Trevor Lawrence at quarterback. Then you got Travis Etienne, a good pass catcher out of the backfield. They drafted Tank Bigsby. They got Michael Hasty, and then Snoop Connor, a bunch of guys like that. You got Christian Kirk. They traded for Calvin Ridley, Zay Jones, who could be a producer, or just a steady go-to guy anyway. And then Parker Washington, they drafted Jaray Jennings. Is kind of the part of the depth chart where it just falls off the cliff there. But they got a couple good receivers. And then Evan Ingram had a real good year last year. They drafted Brenton Strange in the 2nd round, so they got some. They gave Trevor Lawrence a little bit more help this year, and he did pretty well with what he had last year too. I think it was an improved offense. What do you think about this Jacksonville Jaguars team?
Yeah, I think this is a team on the rise. I was buying the Trevor Lawrence dip last year big time. I know me and you talked about both of us going out there and getting him. I'm like, what are we talking about? Like, this guy was unreal in college, unreal in high school, had one bad year with a terrible head coach, as everyone could say that was just an absolute disaster there in Jacksonville. When they added Doug Peterson, I was like, sky's the limit now. Here, I mean, just been known as be a super friendly head coach as far as quarterbacks are concerned, super friendly to quarterbacks. I was all over T-Law. I still am. I think T-Law is a surefire top 10 guy going in this year. If you didn't buy him yet, you're probably in trouble. You're not getting him unless you're way overpaying. But he's a guy I love. I just love the fact that they added weapons around him. Christian Kirk, everybody complained about that, contract being so huge, but he played really well. Zay Jones is sneaky. I loved Zay Jones last year. I just thought he was a sneaky flex play in a ton of leagues, and I had him all over the place, and he came through. Now the question is, how much run does he get with Calvin Ridley there? Now you hope Calvin Ridley can bounce back. He hasn't seen the field in almost 2 years at this point. So I always get worried about these guys that haven't played forever. I know they're professional athletes and they're studs, but sitting out that long can really affect how you end up playing, affects your body, everything else. So hopefully he comes back. If he comes back as the guy that he was before, oh man, Jacksonville's just hit a home run. And I mean, they're looking great. Can Evan Ingram have another bounce back year. I mean, he had a huge year last year. Can he do that again? I like Strange. I don't know if I'm seeing much fantasy production for him, but I'm stashing him everywhere. I think he's a really good blocker. I think he's going to do all the stuff that Ingram doesn't do, as far as inline blocking, all those things. And then, Travis Etienne, I think, is really good. A little injury concerns with him last year, but then they added Tank Bigsby in the draft. I think he's a great handcuff for Etienne. This team just it feels like it's on the rise. They got a solid defense. They took a ton of defensive players the last couple of years, try to focus a little more on offense this year. And in this bad division, I feel like it's Jacksonville's division to win for sure.
Yeah.
They've got obviously a harder schedule, having won the division last year. A little rougher. They've got quite a few tough road games, but I just think this team is going to be tough, and they're going to be a tough out in the playoffs. They just got another year of confidence going. I just think T-Law has a monster year this year. I really do.
I was in San Diego for my daughter's lacrosse tournament last year when Trevor Lawrence had that comeback win at San Diego in Los Angeles for that game when Trevor Lawrence came back. So when that happened, I think that put Trevor Lawrence on the map as far as people questioning his long-term ability to be the franchise quarterback for this team. And like you said before, if you didn't get him before, I don't think you're getting him anymore, because what he showed on the field in that game, really, especially in the national spotlight, Trevor Lawrence is almost the price doubled. If you didn't have him before, then you're probably not getting him then. So,
yeah, I think he has a monster year. I was all over T-Law. I was live betting that game like crazy in Jacksonville and hit that. I was so pumped. So T-Law, I'll never forget him for the comeback there and winning me a bunch of money on that. I just think he's ready to explode. I said, if Calvin Ridley, has that bounce back year, I think he might be that missing piece of that X factor that they just needed to take this offense over the top. But I really like T-Law another year under his belt. And like I said, I think the defense has improved, where it's not like he's coming in feeling like he's got to win every game for them, and it's all on him. So it hurts to say as a Colts fan, but man, I like this Jags team. I like T-Law. I think with all the young QBs in this division, he is now a guy's only a couple years in the league is the senior leader of QBs in this division now. Depending on what happens with Ryan Tannehill this year for the Titans.
So yeah, talk about ready to explode. I mean, Will Levis from the Titans. Tannehill will start the season probably. Will Levis, he's going to come in and burn this league up, right?
This is probably my least favorite quarterback room in all of the NFL. Ryan Tannehill, I've never been a huge guy of. He's had a solid career here and there. You got Levis behind him, who, we've talked ad nauseum about how much I don't like Will Levis. I just don't think he's a very good quarterback. And then Malik Willis, a guy who I couldn't understand last year either. When people were talking about the Steelers taking him, I'm like, what are they talking about? This guy, this doesn't make any sense to me. Right. So they got those three guys, and I have a feeling the Titans somehow, some way, have used Derrick Henry and Tannehill and enough defense to keep winning this division the last couple of years. I think they're primed for a downfall. I just feel like this team is old. They missed their window, and I think this team is not going to be good. They've got a great coaching staff. They seem to get wins every year. They've won a bunch of games the last couple of years that I'm like, how did that team win that game? But they've done enough, to win close games to hold people off. So the question is, can you get one more big year out of Derrick Henry? Can he stay healthy? Is the team going to be good enough? I mean, again, not only do I not like their quarterback room, but their wide receiver room is really rough. I mean, Treylon Burks from last year, I like him. He's supposedly looking a lot better, more in shape this year coming into the season. But outside of him at wide receiver, I mean, this team, just nobody jumps out at you. You got Nick Westbrook, Inky. That's okay. But, I mean, the fact that he's even in your starting lineup, it worries me. Kyle Phillips got a lot of buzz at the beginning of camp last year, didn't do much. He technically is a starter right now at wide receiver in the slot. And then behind those guys, you got Racey McMath,
yes,
Powell, and Chris Moore. I mean, I just nothing against these guys, but this just seems like the worst wide receiver room in the league outside of Treylon Burks. And again, is Treylon Burks the stud to carry that group? Can he actually carry that entire group? So I know they like their tight ends, Chig, Conquo, people are really him up. The coaching seems to really like Josh Weil, the rookie out of Cincinnati. So both those guys are kind of high on people's lists, and I'm probably looking at Conquo in a few leagues. If you're looking in a tight end premium league or like to start 2 tight end league, he's probably the guy I'm going out and trying to get. Just I think he could see a decent amount of touches. All the metrics, if you look at all the special metrics, all those things, they all say he is primed to have a breakout. This is just another team a little bit like Houston. Outside of Derrick Henry, and if I'm in a dynasty holding Treylon Burks, I'm not sure I want much to do with anybody on this team. If I start them, I'm not going to be starting them with confidence. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, that's Chig is I just drafted Chig in a startup. I tried trading for Chig in a bunch of leagues. I got shut out in almost all of them. I'd overpay in one league just to get it because I didn't have a tight end pretty much. But I think it's going to be Treylon Burks and Chig Conquo show behind Derrick Henry. If something happened to Derrick Henry, this team is pretty much a submarine going to the bottom of the ocean. It is going to be bad news for this team. Even though it's a good defense, a decent defense, there's nothing on offense in this team. It's like a barren wasteland behind. You got Derrick Henry, Treylon Burks, Chig Conquo, and that is it. Tajay Spears might have to pull the weight if something happens to Henry, if they trade Henry before the week 8 deadline, or it's before the season starts, just to kind of start the tanking process. But man, that is it. It's bad news here. So.
Yeah, I've got Derrick Henry in quite a few leagues, and I'm on the fence of whether I just hold out and see if he's got one more year left, or if I try to sell him cheap, just to get some kind of draft capital for him. But that's where I think a lot of people are going to have to make that decision this year.
Yeah, right. All right. So we'll switch to the NFC South here. We're going to go to we'll start off with the Falcons. Desmond Ridder. Who would you rather have, Desmond Ridder or Sam Howell?
Oh, that's a tough. If I had to just do it in a vacuum, I take Sam Howell. If I know Sam Howell, if I know both guys are going to start all year, I take Sam Howell. I like Sam Howell as a quarterback better. I think he's a better prospect. But Ritter's like they're fully on board with Ridder. Now, the Commanders say they're going to give Howell a shot. I'm still not 100% sold they're going to give him the shot all year. Or if he doesn't play well right away, they don't yank him for Jacoby Brissett. So if I just look at it and you tell me both guys are going to start all season, who do you want? I want Howell, personally. Now, I think Ritter's in a good position with a good offense. I just think he's got a lot of players around him. I just like Howell as a QB better.
Yeah. I think he's got more fantasy value anyway, as far as that, with his rushing ability. So, I agree.
Yeah, he's a highly underrated rusher. I mean, he's a guy that ran for a lot of yards in college, and people just kind of forgot about it, that he was a guy that ran the ball a decent amount. And if he can put up 400 or 500 yards rushing to go along with his passing, I mean, the guy was an absolute stud a couple years at University of North Carolina. I mean, he had a little bit of a down last year there, but man, the guy put up unreal stats when he was there. And I've said it a bunch of times. I'd take him over Will Levis all day long. I'd much rather have Howell and give Howell a shot over Will Levis, just because he proved it in college. He showed he could do it. Levis is a guy who he's got a lot of the same tools, but man, he did not show that he could be an absolute stud in college. And again, I'm worried about Levis being a turnover machine in the NFL. He just feels like a guy who's going to turn the ball over a lot.
Well, you got Arthur Smith offense here. You made Tyler Algier pretty much an all-star last year. Now you got Bijan Robinson thrown in the mix. You got Drake London, and then that's Mac Hollins is probably the best center option on this depth chart. He said Scotty Miller is kind of a he's a piece. I think he's a little bit undervalued, but he's not going to be anything special. Kyle Pitts, they really couldn't use him up to his potential, and he got hurt. So John O. Smith is get back up behind Pitts in case something happens there. But Pitts is obviously the option. The rest, I mean, this is a ground and pound team here. So the rest, what do you think about the rest of this Falcons offense? How are they going to pan out this year?
Yeah, I think that's the question is like, can this team figure out how to put it in? They actually were not horrible with Mariota last year, and Mariota's stats were not good. I mean, he had a pretty solid year running the ball, but passing wise, he missed a ton of open guys. He had some of the worst, statistics in the league as far as missing open receivers and how passes he had that were off, like not even catchable. So that's their, I think Taylor Heineke is a great sign for them. If something happens with Ridder, I think they can still compete with. if this defense can improve, where they added some guys, I think is good. And this was my absolute favorite landing spot pre-draft for Bijan. I just thought, man, Tyler Algier is just an okay running back. I think he's not bad, but what they did with him last year, man, now you take a guy like Bijan and put him on that offense. I just think Bijan could be an absolute beast in this offense. I think he can get a ton of carries, a ton of yards. I think can get catches out of the backfield. I just love it for fantasy purposes. I only have Bijan on one team, or going to have him on one team. I got a draft coming up next week. I got the 1-1. It's probably the only team I'm going to get him on, but I'm excited about him and his ability and what he can do in Atlanta. And like I said, if you can get any kind of consistent play out of Ritter and he can figure out how to get Kyle Pitts and London involved, this team could be sneaky good. I just think the offense is got way more weapons than people think it does. I think they're going to play kind of conservative with Ritter, which I think helps him, that they're not going to play crazy. They're going to lean on the run. And again, we talked about it before. They're in a bad division. This is a wide open division. So I don't think Atlanta, I don't think you got to go out there and win 12 games. I think if you can win 9 games, you can go 9-8, 10-7. I mean, you can win this division for sure.
Yeah.
So I just think they just got to stay in it. They just got to stay in games and stay close and hopefully keep confidence in Ritter. And again, I think if Ritter stumbles, Taylor Heineke, he's shown you that he can do it. I mean, he was pretty solid for the Commanders last year. Now he's not a game breaker, but he's a guy that can do some things that can lead you some wins.
Hopefully we'll talk about stumbles here. We don't want to see Bryce Young stumble with the Carolina Panthers. I mean, doesn't have far to fall, but he's a kind of a short guy. But you got Miles Sanders, Chuba Hubbard. I believe Chuba Hubbard is one of the better handcuffs in this league. Raheem Blackshear is nothing special, kind of another smaller guy. Jonathan Mingo, we have him on the team together that we co-manage, and we were kind of happy about that because he may be the best receiver on this team, even though, I mean, you got DJ Chark, Terrace Marshall, Adam Thielen, who's okay, but his best days may have been in the past, Mr. Minnesota. But Hayden Hurst, Tommy Tremble. Tommy Tremble's pretty much a blocker. He might as well be a fullback at this point in time. But there's Jonathan Mingo may be the best option besides Miles Sanders getting stuffed the ball every play. What is this Carolina Panthers team going to do?
Yeah, I think this is a team that's interesting as well because I think they're right there with Atlanta thinking, hey, we could possibly win this division. It's not a crazy good division. They're already talking about
Atlanta's got a lot more talent than
Andy Dalton. I think they do too. I think Atlanta's got a better upside team. They're already talking about Andy Dalton, getting some reps, first team reps. I'm like, guys, really? This is what we're doing? The Andy Dalton thing again? I just don't understand it, man. It makes no sense to me. I don't know what the Saints were doing last year with him. I don't know what they're doing. Like, to me, you come in and you play Bryce Young right away. I mean, he's not an Anthony Richardson that only played 13 games in college. The guy was a Heisman winner. I mean, guys starting for years for Alabama. So, I mean, it's not like he's not ready to go. So I think you play Bryce Young. The question is, I like Miles Sanders on the running game. This team pounded the rock last year as well. So I like, again, Chuba. I like Chuba a lot. I think he's a great handcuff. The question is, what can you get out of this wide receiver crew? Now, Mingo, good size, great speed, but didn't produce a lot in college. Can he be number one? Adam Thielen, again, at the tail end of his career, does he got one good season left in him? DJ Chark, a guy who's had some great years in the NFL, but he's also disappeared in quite a few seasons too. So can those guys step up for Bryce Young? And that's the question on this team. Really good defense. I just think the team that turns the ball over the least and plays solid defense and runs the ball is going to win this division. I just think that is what this is setting up to be. You've got young quarterbacks, not the greatest, group in the world, but young quarterbacks with teams who like to run the ball, who like to play good defense. Whoever ends up doing that the best wins this division. Personally, right now, I've got the Falcons winning the division. Yeah. I have it really close. I have it within a game. And we can talk about the Saints here coming up as well. But I like Carolina. I think they're okay. I think they think they're better than they are.
Right.
I personally don't think they're as good as they think they are. I think they thought they were a quarterback away. And to me, I think that's a little much.
I think you're putting Mingo and Chark on the outside and Adam Thielen at the slot. They'll play a lot of 3 wide receiver sets, but I have a feeling that's Thielen it could be a sneaky buy this offseason because I'm not sure this offense is going to have to get rid of the ball fast. Miles Sanders is a good between the tackles running back. He showed it last year, but I'm not sure about he's a good pass catcher, but they don't really use him they haven't been really even used like that, especially in Philadelphia. I don't know what they're going to do here. You can't have a guy like Bryce Young sit in the pocket for 3 or 4 seconds waiting for Mingo and Chart to get open downfield. So it's going to have to be dump off pass to Hayden Hurst and Adam Thielen, or just something to the running backs, or just hand the ball off a ton. I'm not sure what Bryce Young's going to do. He's not a crazy runner either. So I'm not really sure how this offense is going to mesh. It just doesn't seem like it's put together. Like the puzzle pieces don't really connect as far as making this whole thing operable. So it's kind of a weird depth chart for me as far as that goes.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Adam Thielen's probably worth a shot at buying.
Right.
If you're a win now team and you just need another flex play or a guy that can be your third wide receiver.
Yeah, so we're gonna JT throw a little bit. We're gonna jump to the Saints now. We got Derek Carr as a quarterback because they traded for him. My favorite guy in the NFL, Jameis Winston. Then they drafted Kendre Miller, which if Alvin Kamara sits out the first couple games, you're looking at a good running back in Kendre Miller. Probably one of my favorite running backs in this draft anyway. Probably number 3, probably 3 or 4 as far as that goes. Chris Olave, everybody's fan favorite. Michael Thomas, if he can stay healthy or get healthy and stay healthy, we'll see what happens. A.T. Perry was a guy a lot of people smarter than me had pretty high in the draft process. Didn't really go where they wanted him to. So Traquan Smith's okay, but depth chart kind of falls after that. Juwan Johnson is a really good tight end. Hopefully he's going to get some work this year too, especially because Derek Carr does like his tight end. What do you think about this New Orleans Saints depth chart, JT?
Yeah, so this is another team I think is interesting. Depending on how Derek Carr kind of gets in the mix with this team, they've got some talent. They're one of those teams that just haven't lived up to expectations the last couple of years. Man, I'd love to see Michael Thomas bounce back. I have to say I don't trust it though. I don't trust it at all. I just feel like he's been hurt too long, way too long. Even if he gets back and somehow stays healthy, is he going to be the old Michael Thomas? I don't think so. A.T. Perry, like you said, he's a guy I wrote a few articles about for DLF. He's just a really good. He's a guy that is one of the few pure X receivers in this class. So many guys are slot guys. He's a pure X on the outside. Just put up great numbers at Wake Forest. He's an almost guy, 6'2", 200 pounds. Doesn't seem that big, but when everybody else in this draft seemed like they were under 6 foot and like 175, 180, he seems like a much bigger guy. He's a guy I'm totally buying, kind of like we talked about with Xavier Hutchinson for Houston. I'm buying A.T. Perry in the 4th round of leagues if I can get him. Some leagues I'm having to take him near the end of the 3rd, but if I can get him in the 4th, I'm absolutely jumping him on the 4th. He has a chance, I think, to be that guy on the other side from Chris Olave, and maybe he doesn't get peppered with a ton of targets, but we know Derek Carr likes to throw the ball down the field. And so if he can be the guy to get out there, and if Olave seeing some double teams and everything like that, it might open up things for A.T. Perry. So he's a guy I like. Depending on what they do with the running back crew here, this is a talented group. Now,
right.
How are they going to divvy up these carries? That's the thing for me. I just don't know. We still have not gotten word on the Alvin Kamara situation. How long is it get suspended? You assume it has to be for at least 6 games. Jamal Williams. Do you love Jamal Williams? Do you not? Huge touchdown season last year. Can't translate that here. Say Kendre Miller. Everybody, kind of seems like everybody's 3rd or 4th running back now in the rookie draft. How much play does he get with those 2 guys in front of him? It's just, real interesting group. I think they've got a tough defense. I think if they can figure out how to handle the running backs, if A.T. Perry or somebody in this wide receiver group can jump in to help Chris Olave, I think they got a shot to be pretty good. But again, I think this is going to be a jumbled division. I see all these teams being right in that like 7-10, 8-9, 9-8 range. and it's just going to come down to who can beat who if they can split up games or whatnot. And again, they're playing the AFC South. So can these teams beat up on the Texans and the Titans and the Colts? Who could get wins there too might make a difference. So I think it's going to be a close division. I don't think any of these teams are going to be great, but I think it's going to be at least exciting playoffs race to see who wins it. But you got to figure the Saints have added a few players. Derek Carr is a huge upgrade over Andy Dalton, at least for me personally.
Yes, exactly.
So I think that makes a difference there. So I think you got to look at that with the defense of the Saints. They're going to be right there in the mix. For some reason, I just got this feeling when I was looking at the schedule. It just felt like the schedule wrapped up a little bit better for the Falcons, was a little bit easier for them than the Saints. And that's kind of why I lean them for the division, but I think it's going to be close. But I do think this Saints team, at least I think these guys are playable. I'm playing Derek Carr. If I got Kamara, I'm playing Kamara. Kendre Miller's one of those guys I'm looking at. He's going end of the first round, beginning of the second round, depending on what type of league or how many teams you have. I think he's got high upside. Like I said, I like A.T. Perry late. Obviously, Chris Olave, he's high up there. If you haven't got him, you're probably not going to be able to go get him at this point, unless you're really to spend some money on him, some high draft capital to get him. But I think it's going to be a better offense with Derek Carr, and so that makes me feel better about any Saints players I have.
If Kamara only gets a 6-game suspension and the trade deadline's week 8, do you think that if Kendre Miller starts the season out tight, like a good, that they just say, hey, it's time to move on from Kamara and trade him away somewhere?
It'd be interesting to see what they could get for him. I know we've seen that, a lot of these guys are getting a 4th or 5th round running back, maybe, and swapping a 6th and 7th round pick for some of these trades. So it'd be interesting to see if they would be ready completely to move on from him. The only thing about Kamara too is, the guy's never been a huge carry workload back. He's always got a lot of catches.
Right.
And so I always feel like when you're a little bit older running back, that kind of leans in your favor when more of your game is catching the ball out of the backfield as opposed to just pounding the rock. It feels like you can have a little bit longer career, a little longer longevity with that. So maybe they move on for him. Maybe they say, we're not going to get anything enough for him anyway. We might as well just keep him and run it. I can see it being a situation where fantasy managers are pretty upset all season, as you're never quite sure which guy is going to have the big game. Because I think all 3 guys can put up big games all year. Yeah. Now, the question is going to be, is the roulette wheel, who is the actual guy to hit this week? Because I could see them kind of doing a hot hand thing where a guy's playing well and they leave that guy in.
Speaking of who's going to hit this year, we go to Buccaneers next. Who's going to hit, Baker Mayfield or the guy Kyle Trask? I think they like Kyle Trask a lot more than people lead on.
This is an interesting one for me because I thought this was a good spot for Baker Mayfield to go because he's on that last leg. This has got to be it for him. He's either got to prove it this year and he's got to do it this year with Tampa to earn himself a starting role going forward. If not, after this, I think he becomes a complete backup quarterback the rest of his career if he doesn't win the starting job. I just don't see a team give him another shot after this. Now, Kyle Trask, it's interesting. Guy was a 2nd round pick. So it's not like he's some 4th, 5th, 6th rounder that's just been sitting around. Now the question is, people are like, well, he couldn't beat out Gabbert to back up Tom Brady. I'm like, could he not beat him out, or were they just going with the experience of Gabbert over that? So I think Trask has got some ability. Obviously, the guy played really well at Florida. He's been in the league a couple of years, hasn't taken any snaps, so you don't know what to expect from him. I think this is definitely going to be a very interesting QB battle. The problem for me is I like some of the offensive weapons on this team. Their O-line I don't love, and their defense for some reason is getting worse, even though you look at that lineup and you see some pretty big names over there. Devin White, Antonio Winfield. Like, they've got some talent, but it seemed like they slipped last year defensively. They just weren't as good as they had been in the past. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, they've got talent on offense. Can those guys step up with the QB play? I don't know. It's just going to be interesting to see how long of a leash either one of these guys have. And if they go back and forth between both QBs all year, because every time a guy makes a mistake, they switch QBs, that just screams trouble to me for Tampa. Right. And Tampa's a team that you look at the names on the roster, you think they should be better than they are. I have a feeling that this team is going to struggle. I actually have them finishing last in this division this year.
So Rashad White is somebody that before the draft happened, I got pretty cheap in a lot of leagues because of the fact that I think a lot of people were afraid they were going to supplant him with a running back in the draft. They only took Sean Tucker as a UDFA. Like, what do you think? Is Rashad White as bad as people make him out to be? Is he a guy who just cannot run between the tackles? He's only a pass catching receiving back. And if that's the case, what's so bad about having a really good pass catching receiving back? The guy that can block real well, a guy that can catch the ball pretty good. Like, what is the problem with having Rashad White as my wide receiver? Let's say if he's my wide receiver 2 of my fantasy team, what's so bad about that?
Your RB2, yeah. I mean, I think Rashad. I've never been a big white guy. I wasn't a big white guy coming out in the draft. I just, he catches the ball pretty well. He's got a decent amount of talent. I just didn't see the huge upside of him. I liked him as a change of pace or second back. I don't know if I love it if he goes in as a starter, but for me, I'm a huge Sean Tucker guy. He was my RB3 before all the medical concerns knocked him out of the combine, knocked him out of his pro day. If somehow he gets cleared and everything works out and he can actually play, I actually can see Sean Tucker stealing this job. I can see Sean Tucker being the number 1 with White kind of staying in that role where he's the number 2/3 down back, catching passes out of the backfield. Tucker's a guy I'm taking all kinds of chases on. I mean, if you looked at it last summer, he was going in the early to mid first round in mock drafts. As far as fantasy was concerned, started dropping more towards the second round as later in the year as things went on. And now, you're getting this guy. I'm trading him up and getting him in the 4th round if I can get him. If I can get him in the 4th, I'm trading up and taking a shot on him. There's certain leagues I've got him in the 5th. He got all the way down to me in the 5th. I can't believe it. But he's a guy I'm taking because it's worth a shot. I mean, you're already taking dart throws in the 4th and 5th round anyway. So you take a guy like that with that kind of ability and upside, I just think he's got a shot with, again, with Leonard Fournette being gone, and it's just really Rashad White there. Chase Edmonds doesn't scare me. He hasn't done much. I just like the opportunity for Sean Tucker. So I'm a Sean Tucker guy. I'm taking him over Rashad White personally, just on the high upside. But I think White could be a solid back. But if you're looking going into the season with him as your RB1, I think you're probably in trouble. Yeah. He's definitely more of an RB2 flex play for me if I have him. I really don't have him in any leagues. I just wasn't big on him last year, and he never fell far enough to make it feel like it was worth my while to take him. I think he's a solid back. I just do not see him as a stud workhorse back, but I do think he can do some stuff. If they get down in games and they have to throw the ball a bunch, there's a chance he gets a decent amount of catches. But I also think Sean Tucker can catch the ball on the backfield as well.
That's what I'm banking on, is Rashad White just having maybe 5-6 catches, probably maybe 12, 13 carries a game, 5 or 6 catches, maybe some easy walk-in touchdowns out of the backfield kind of thing, receptions, some yak ability after the catch ability. So we'll see what happens there. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans on the outside, Godwin playing the slot, Evans on the outside, and then Russell Gage is pretty much the next man up as far as outside's concerned. But they're probably going to go with a 2 wide receiver set. We'll see what happens there. I don't know why they don't. Cade Otton is just somebody who's kind of getting buried in his depth chart. Like Payne Durham seems to be the guy that they like right now. They drafted him. I'm not really sure why. Cade Otton seemed to be a pretty decent tight end last year, but hopefully Baker Mayfield can dump off to tight end a little bit more than Tom Brady did, which I'm not sure that's possible because Brady threw 100 million times last year, but I feel like Cade Otton's still a good fantasy option as far as an invisible tight end option.
Yeah, I like Cade Otton too. I've got him in quite a few leagues. I drafted him in a ton of leagues last year. I like him. I think he's still got good upside. It's strange. I'm a Payne Durham guy. I really like Payne Durham. His athletic profile is not great. He's just one of those guys. He doesn't do anything special. But, man, the guy just made plays at Purdue last year. He just made plays. He got in the end zone. He always found himself open. I just like him. I don't ever think he's going to be a superstar player by any means in the NFL. But he's one of those guys, if I'm in one of those deep drafts that's like 5th round and there's 12, 14 teams in my league, 16 teams in my league, and we're getting deep on the depth chart, Payne Durham's my guy I'm taking with my last pick in all my rookie drafts. Yeah. He's a guy I'm grabbing and stashing on a taxi squad. does he do anything this year? I don't know. But he's a guy I'm willing to stash for 2 or 3 years and see if he ends up carving out a little bit of a role. I just feel like he could be – I feel like he's a Jack Doyle type for the Colts. A guy, just a solid player, big guy, knows the game, isn't real athletic, isn't going to give you a ton of yak after the catch, but he's going to give you something. And I just feel like he could be that Jack Doyle type. And with the tight end landscape the way it is right now, getting a guy like that late where you can play him and maybe he ends up being the 12th or 14th highest scoring tight end, at some point in his career is probably worth it, with how little you're investing in him. So he's a guy I'd like to see him get a shot as well. And I think for all these guys, fantasy wise, it's going to come down to the QB play.
Right.
Can Baker or Trask put it together enough to make Godwin or Evans? I mean, I figure those guys for me, in a redraft are probably going to slip. Everybody's going to expect nothing out of them. I'm probably going to grab them mid rounds. For dynasty purposes, Godwin's probably still a buy. Mike Evans, a little down year last year. Can you get him cheaper? I haven't seen a lot of trades with him involved lately, but if you could get him for a fairly decent price on a win now team, I think he's worth a shot as well. I mean,
sure.
He's going to give you some big weeks. He's going to have you some terrible weeks too, but he's going to give you some monster ones as well.
Hopefully they count in the season instead of in the playoffs when everybody's team's already done,
I sat him in a league that it crushed me, and I had another guy that in one of our leagues that sat him that final week, and it cost him making the championship game.
That's how it works. Man. It's 90% luck and 10% skill is what some people say. So, JT, where can everybody? Thanks for coming on today. First of all, thanks for making the Commissioner Evaluation Show awesome as usual. Love having you on here. Thanks for being awesome. Where can everybody find you at, and what do you do in the fantasy football community here?
Yep, everybody can find me on Twitter at JT Orange. I do a little bit of everything: dynasty, redraft, IDP, best ball, playing every type of league. So, you got any questions about any kind of league stuff? I do all that stuff. You can find me writing for DLF. And I'm also on Dynasty Pros, where I jump on and do a Monday Debbie show with a couple guys over there on Dynasty Pros. And then I also have my podcast that I do along with yours here that I do on the P2W. I do mine on the Dynasty Pros. It's called The Stew with JT Brew. Check that one out. We don't have a set date we're always on, but we've got right now all of our over-under picks for the year. And betting odds and all those things that me and you diced up a bunch of the stuff together. And so we've kind of putting those out division by division here over the last week or two. So keep an eye out for those. Keep looking for those. And like I said, if you are in IDP, I have my IDP rankings on DLF. I'm one of the IDP rankers there, and I write all kinds of IDP articles that have come out lately there as well.
Thank you very much. Thanks for coming on today, JT. Thanks for all you people that tuned in today to the Commissioner Evaluation Show. Thanks for making this show special. Thank you for listening to the depth charts evaluations here. JT is one of the best in the business. He's got a great show. He's doing great things. One of the best finds in the history of fantasy football. Going to this fishbowl and meeting JT was one of the pleasures of my life. So that's what it's all about, man. Connecting, networking, being good people, meeting good people, and just having a good time playing fantasy football. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening. Thanks for everybody watching the Commissioner Evaluation Show. Thanks for making this show special. This is my favorite hobby in the world, and you guys listening and commenting and talking is what makes it special for me. So thank you very much, everyone. We will see you throughout the week. Got a show every day this week. Thank you. Have a good day.